Association is mentorship. Lauren, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, my camera's not working, but I'll try to fix it.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Just want to make sure that we weren't flying in the dark here. So, from the Officers Association standpoint, one of our pillars is is mentorship, and we haven't really, to be honest with you, built out a mentorship platform, kind of for what the vision was. But if for nothing else, I think things like this is important just to make sure that everybody's kind of operating on the same page. And thanks to Groves for kind of setting this up. Appreciate it. Him thinking highly of me enough to ask me to do this. From that, I asked Groves if there's anything in particular that he wanted to discuss, and the thing that he said he wanted to talk about was guard departments. So for me, garden apartments is one of the I don't want to say favorite calls of mine to run, but I think it's one of the more challenging ones, and I like to keep myself fresh and on my toes. And the reason why I feel like garden apartment is one of the more challenging of them is because of just the sheer size and the potential for exposure and potential of loss of life and property. Right. We are supposed to be tasked with mitigating those problems quickly, and I think garden apartments are one of the areas where we can affect the most change and the most good because there is such a high potential for loss of life and property. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was we'll touch on a couple quick topics, and this is not by any means, this is not like an organized class. If you guys have questions, if it's conversation, please stop me at any point. And I kind of just jotted down some thoughts and some key takeaways from stuff that I've done over the course of my career to try to help out with try to help you guys out, try not for you guys to make the same mistakes that I've made in the past. And please, by all means, if your battalion chief or your deputy chief operates things in a different way, I don't want you to take anything that I say to supersede what they're saying. Just perspective, and maybe put a little, maybe think about things from a different perspective from my vantage point. I am by no means a subject matter expert on any of this stuff, but everything that I have, I am willing to give up to you guys. So with that, we'll just get started. So for garden apartments, like I said, is very, very high potential for loss of life and property. So one of the more important things to do, and I know that you guys are newer lieutenants, and then in Sean's case, a prospective lieutenant. And if you're on the detail trail and if you haven't gotten assigned a permanent spot, is getting to know your crew a little bit and knowing the area a little bit. So one of the first things that you need to have is that conversation when you're rostering up. Hey, who are you? How long you been here? What do where do you normally ride? How much time you got in? And time doesn't mean experience necessarily, just for you to gauge as the company officer where you need to meet them at, because you're not going to go in for a day and change the world and change the whole operating way of a shift, but at least you have an understanding of where they are so you can meet them where they are. And that conversation doesn't have to be anything formal, nothing, like just, hey, sit down, or not even sit down while you're rostering up, just ask those couple questions, and then that way you can kind of gauge where they are. Because if you have somebody that's got 5 years on the job and they've only worked at the station for 6 months, that's different, because as we all know, every part of the county is different. Building construction, building type. Inside the Beltway is a lot older than outside the Beltway. So if you're working at 17, it's different than working at 28, right? One of the things that for every structure fire that I've come across that I like to do just as an engine officer is I always assign my left bucket person to do a interview. And I know that sounds weird, but after I give my own team report and I start to take my lap, I'm hyper focused on trying to get the things done that I need to get done as a company officer. To me, from the time the tones drop until the time you actually start putting water on the fire or starting your search, that is the most hectic and chaotic portion of company officer life, aside from focus, right? Uh, so during that during that time period, there's a lot of information that needs to be taken in. So if we're on scene of a call, the last thing I always tell my left bucket is they're in charge of doing the interviews. So when we get on scene, what I've learned about the public is that everybody wants to tell their story. Everybody wants to give their 2 cents. Everybody wants to feel involved in helping the process, right? So as a company officer, if I'm getting off the rig and I'm getting bombarded with the citizens running up and telling me all the things that they want to tell me, I'm not able to do what I want to do. And I'm a huge sports guy, and I like to think of things in football terms, right? So if I'm the quarterback of the first 2 engine officers, the quarterback to me, they're going to set the tone. They're going to set the play. They're going to read the defense and then come up with the best way. If we need to call an audible, that company officers, that quarterback, that calls that audible based on what they see. So the left bucket person, as they come off and they're going to do the interviews, I want them to take all the information that these citizens are trying to tell us and then decipher it and give it back to me after the lap. Right. So if we come off because 90% of garden apartments, it's going to be a cross-lay stretch. It's going to be a one firefighter deployment of the hose line. So that leaves the left bucket person to conduct these interviews. Or if you go left side, right side, depending on the fire side, that's totally up to you, your call. But I do highly recommend that you use one of your people to conduct these interviews. And after you return from your lap, the person that you have conducting your interviews then deciphers that information and gives it back to you in firefighter talk. Right. So I don't, I need to know occupancy status. I need to know if there's any potential risk of exposure, where they saw the fire at, what the smoke conditions were from the people that were in the building prior to us arriving. And then if something has changed drastically, we need to note that. And if conditions are pretty much the same, then we know that fire is progressing so quickly that it's going to be out of control. So that left bucket interview is super important, and it also gives the citizens the feeling that they're being heard and being listened to, and that we're not just there doing what we want to do without taking any information in from them. And one of the key discussions that you'd like to have with this person conducting the interview is for them to understand when you are talking to them, not to be rude, not to be disrespectful, and not to interrupt too much, because it's their shit that's on fire, pardon my French, and it's their family member that's potential. So one of the other reasons that I like to say the left bucket person, and typically the left bucket person is a medic, and medics are typically really good at getting information from citizens because of that the medic portion of it, where they're used to doing assessments on patients, so they know how to talk to people and they know how to get that information that's needed from them. So that's one of the first conversations that we have as we're going down the road. And then again, like I said, I reiterate that right before we pull the parking brake. Hey, make sure you conduct that interview. So as we're looking at size up, so we're going down the road. You pull up your first due. You're looking at spotting your primary water supply. You're looking at the building setback. You're looking at the potential for how long your stretches are. All of that stuff is super handy in the first due with the measuring function. You can get a lot of information from there. But again, this is part of that what I said earlier about how the first due engine officer has so much stuff going on between time of dispatch and actually going to work. So for that, the estimated stretch, and you're reading your CAD notes, and you're trying to control the sirens, and you're making sure nobody gets ran over in the process. Like all of that stuff happening at one time, is you have to kind of triage where we are and what we need, what information needs to be disseminated, and trying to get those whole stretches. I encourage my people in the buckets to be looking at that stuff, the hose team. If we're still looking at the football analogy, to me, the hose team is the offensive line. No matter how good your quarterback is, no matter how good your running back is, if your offensive line is trash, your team is going to be trash. Your office is going to be trash. So if your host team isn't on the same page, then the fire isn't going to go good no matter how much you talk on the radio, no matter how good your size up is, no matter how good any of the rest of that stuff goes. So your offensive line, I encourage my people to have their first due out and looking at these things and trying to measure and looking at it. And they have a lot of verbal and nonverbal communication in the back. Hey, you go, I go. Hey, let's grab a bundle. Let's talk about extend the line. Like all those things can happen en route to the call. I'm a firm believer in on-scene reports always happen inside the cab, always. Unless you can't see the building unless the setback is such that you cannot physically see the building or there's tree coverage or whatever, always from the cab. Because like I said, once you step off the rig, you can't control anything else that's happening around you, whether there's citizens coming up, whether there's a dog chasing you, whether there's whatever you can encounter coming off the rig. If you're in there with your headset on, with the door closed, you can give a on-scene report. It gives you a second to take a deep breath, look at everything you're seeing, and be able to relay that information. It is completely. I just did it the other day. We had a small fire on Engine 5, just our last B shift day, where I gave an on-scene report, and then after my lap, I had to change the occupancy type because what I saw when we first pulled up wasn't what actually was going on. So, so with that, that size up from the cab, always from the cab. What we're looking for garden apartments in particular is whether it's a garden apartment or it's a mid or high rise building, right? And I know the throwdown answer that we give for that question is how many stories it is, right? If it's more than 4 stories, we consider it a mid-rise, or if it's less than 4 stories, it's a garden apartment. That is not the way I look at things, and your chain of command may feel differently. But to me, a garden apartment, a true garden apartment, is based on the doors, right? So if you pull up on scene and you walk into a garden, for an EMS call, if you pull up on scene and it's a 5-story building, but when you walk into the front door, all the doors can be seen from the landing, that's a garden apartment to me, right? So if I'm standing on the landing and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doors from that landing, and I can access all 6 of those apartments from that landing, that's a garden apartment. No matter how many floors it is up or down, that's a garden apartment because that's how our strategies and tactics dictate, right? If it's a 2-story building, and you walk into the building, and Mac, I'm sure you remember Shoemaker, right? Shoemaker, to me, it is not a garden apartment. That is a mid-rise because of the long hallways, right? Those long hallways and the lobby dictates our tactics. Our tactics for garden apartments and high-rises are totally different. Well, not totally different. We're still just fighting fire, but that long hallway stretch is completely different than what that landing stretch would be, right? So from the cab, you're looking to see if it's a garden apartment or a mid-rise, and you can do that based on the front door and the lobby setting because Shoemaker has a lobby, right? Even though it's only a 2-story building, there's a lobby and there's long hallways. So to me, that's a mid-rise. If it's a garden apartment, we're looking for open and enclosed stairwells and groves. Do you have anything tactically which changes whether it's enclosed stairwell or open stairwells, or anything that you talked about or thought about thus far?
I mean, how you get into the apartment, whether you're going to go over the balcony or up the stairwell, if it's enclosed, I've heard, you want to try to keep the stairwell clean so you can go directly into the apartment over the balcony.
Yes.
That's all I've heard.
Yeah, and I also think with the enclosed stairwell, obviously it's a higher potential for smoke migration, but I also think if it's an open stairwell and it's a cold day outside, that smoke is going to linger anyway, and it's going to make operations a little bit more hectic. For me, the biggest thing for enclosed stairwell versus open stairwell is access to the Charlie side, right? If it's an open stairwell, typically it's open from front to back, and you can get your 360 or your lap report easier than if it's an enclosed stairwell, because enclosed stairwells typically there's only a handful of apartment buildings that I've seen. There's a one in 10s area right off of South George Mason where you can come in the front door and there's a back door and you get access to the back, but there's a lot of places that doesn't have that back door access. So it's harder for you to get around to the Charlie side. And there's a couple of addresses here, if we have a little time at the end, that we could pull up on the first two and I can show you guys what I'm talking about. But the the major takeaway for me is how I'm going to access the Charlie side. So if it's an open stairwell, it makes it easier for me to get around. If it's closed stairwell, it might make it a little more challenging and may have to get that Charlie side report from a next incoming unit. Sorry, let me put my glasses on here because I can't see what I wrote down. And then also part of your initial size up is number of floors that are visible. Number of floors that are visible is super important, not only for locating the fire, but also for the tactics of it. So we all know, in the big push over the past several years is locating fire on the lowest level, which is super important. Obviously, basement fires, we've had a bunch of close calls with basement fires. We have a couple of chief officers who will hang you out to dry if you don't check the status of a basement. Right, regardless of where the fire is visible from, everybody wants to check the lowest level possible. So if we're numbering the floors and we're looking at from our on scene report, hey, we got 3 stories or 4-story garden apartment or a 2-story garden apartment. That's your initial benchmark. And then once you do your 360 or your full situation report, that can change. But that initial benchmark of what we think we're going to have, because that cues in your hose crew. Hey, we may need to extend the line if we're talking 3rd or 4th floor. And it also cues in the truck crew that's incoming. Hey, these are the ladders we need to be looking at. These are the potential risks. So with any structure fire, whether it's a high-rise building or a single-family home or a townhouse, the lower the fire is in the building, the more risk there is for exposure, which means the more danger it gets presented, right? So we all know that fire burns up until it can't go up anymore, and then it goes out. And then if it can't go out anymore, then it starts to burn back down. But if we're talking about a top floor fire, if a top floor fire in a garden apartment gets out of control, the worst thing that's going to happen is we're going to burn the roof off, right? Which isn't a good look for us. But at the same time, we have the roof getting burned off doesn't necessarily affect the people that are the 150 people who are living in the apartments below that, right? But if we're talking about a basement fire or a 1st floor fire that extends up, we're talking about the potential loss of life for everybody from that floor all the way up through the roof, right? So the higher or the lower the level, the more risk for exposure and the more risk of danger. Conversely, the lower the level of the fire, the more quickly we can respond to it, because we are very good at stretching from the engine to the front door of a building. We are less good at going from the street level to the 4th floor with a hose or with it's just more reflex time, right? Not necessarily that we're worse at it, but just more reflex time. So we can deploy those lines quicker to help get the fire out quicker, but it is a more risky venture depending on how low the fire is. So that all of that's part of your size up, and we haven't even gotten off the rig yet, and we're already thinking about all these different things, right? So before I take the headset off and I've done my size up, I've already talked to my left bucket about the interview. I talked to my right bucket about hose line deployment. And if we get on scene and it looks like smoke is visible from the Charlie side or fire is visible from the Charlie side, I'm going to tell my right bucket person or the person who's going to make the stretch, hey, keep that shoulder load on your shoulder until we determine where we're going to deploy this line to, right? And it takes a lot of discipline, because most bucket firefighters, especially now, our people are super young and they're super eager and they want to go make their stretch. But the discipline of it is there's a lot of occasions where it could be an outside-in fire and that first line needs to go to side Charlie. And if we need that line to go to side Charlie and we have already deployed it to side Alpha, is it quicker to just go grab another cross lay and re-stretch, or is it quicker to redeploy that line that's already on the ground? So in order to keep that risk to a minimum, keep that hose line shouldered until we figure out what's going on in that Charlie side. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So, so our once we've hit our size up, the 360 starts. So we get off the rig, and again, open stairwell makes it super easy. I'm gonna walk straight through, and I'm gonna get a look inside Charlie. One of the things that Dobbs taught me when I was working with him for the 6 or 8 months that him and I were together. He taught me to take a picture of the side Charlie, right? And then before you say anything, take a deep breath and turn your head. For whatever reason, that calms the situation down. I feel like when you're looking at the building, you start to fumble your words or whatever. So you turning your head gives you a second just to gather your thoughts and speak clearly, and so it doesn't sound like you're getting chased by a bear, and you're not fumbling over your words. So hey, this is what I have right now. So as you make your 360, you go around side Charlie, you take a look, and I'm gonna give just what we have here, and if we got 2 in the front, 3 in the rear, and we'll label the floor as terrace 1, 2, cool, and then we just keep it pushing. But one of the things that you have to remember is that you gave that task to your left bucket person to talk to the citizens. So you have to, before you complete your situation report, go back and talk to your bucket person. They're going to give you occupancy type, or they're going to give you your occupant status, and they're going to tell you what they saw when they were in the building, right? So the reason why we want them to decipher that a little bit, because you may have somebody that was on the 3rd floor and say, hey, there's smoke on the 3rd floor, but there could be somebody on the 2nd floor. It's like, hey, there's a fire in my kitchen, right? Both people are telling the truth. Both people are accurate in their assessment, but we have to triage it and make sure that we're making decisions based on the best information given to us. And one of the things that we also, as a truck guy, when I was a hardcore truck guy, we take the citizens' information and we use it to rule stuff in, not to rule stuff out, right? So if you tell me, hey, everybody's out of the house, cool, that's awesome. I'm still going to do a primary search. I'm still going to double check to make sure all that stuff is in. But if you tell me, so I'm not taking your information to rule anything out. But if you tell me, hey, my apartment is apartment 202, I ran downstairs to have a cigarette, and now my apartment's on fire and my 3 kids are upstairs, I'm using that to rule in where my targeted search is going to be, right? That is, to me, you don't ever rule anything out, but you definitely rule things in, if that makes sense. One of the other things I feel like we as a department, we don't really talk about very much is the tools that you carry when you do your 360, right? I'm always a Halligan bar. When I was on the truck, it was a hook and a Halligan. As an engine officer, it's always a Halligan. If you come off the rig and you don't have the means to get through a locked gate, then you're doing it wrong, because you can't do a full size up if you can't get through a gate, right? So one of the things we used to do at 10 was I would go to Harbor Freight, and Harbor Freight has like a 20 pack of locks for like $18. And we bought a bunch of these locks, and we would just practice using only the tool that you carry with you to get through that lock, right? And with Garden Apartments, there's a lot of times they have those wrought iron gates that go around the backside of the building to keep kids out, bears out, whatever. But they have those wrought iron gates that are locked, and you have to be able to get through that gate in order to do your job. So whatever tool you carry, it could be a flathead axe, it could be a sledgehammer, but whatever you carry, make sure that you have the means to be able to get through whatever is in front of you without having to run back and grab a saw or whatever. You should be able to get through most things with the tool that you carry. And as we're looking at as we're doing our size up, we're looking for terrace level apartments, which is sometimes it feels like you're speaking Greek when you say terrace level apartments. Because terrace level means there is exterior access to that dwelling from whatever side of the building that you say it is, right? So most terrace level apartments are on the Charlie side, and they have a sliding glass door, but there is no floor visible from side Alpha. A lot of times what ends up happening is that you go down those stairs, you see the 2 terrace level apartments, and then on the Alpha alpha side wall, there's a laundry room, there's a storage facility, whatever. So that is not a full floor. That is not a basement, and it's not a full floor. So that's where we cross into that terrace level apartment. Terrace level apartment. Yeah. So when we label it, we can go terrace level, label terrace 1, 2, terrace 1, 2, 3. But make sure that we make the difference. Make sure you differentiate between a terrace level apartment and a basement, because a basement and a terrace level apartment are two totally different things. Basement access is different than it is on a terrace level apartment. So another part of your situation report is if there is fire visible, where is it at? Where is it going? Right. We already talked about the lower the fire is, the more potential for exposure. And we already talked about the high occupancy level that comes with garden apartments. So if we see where the fire is and we take note of where it's going, we can help get ahead of it. If we talk about the RECIO model that we use in the fire service, extinguishment isn't until the second E, right? There's a bunch of steps that we have to get to before we hit extinguishment. And the C in the RECIO is confinement, right? So I'm going to look at the first E is exposure and then confinement. So if we're looking at, hey, this is where the fire is going, that's my potential exposure. I'm going to try to confine it from that exposure back into the original fire box. And then once we contain that exposure, then we put the initial fire floor out. So we're looking at that. If it's a garden apartment and we have fire on multiple floors, automatic second alarm. Because a garden apartment is just several single family dwellings glued together. So all the things that we have to do on a single family fire, we have to do it now for 6 or 8 small single families that are all attached to each other. So that exposure risk goes up exponentially if we have fire going from one floor to the next. So automatically hit that second alarm if you see that going as part of your size up. Any questions so far? Have I said anything that you guys disagree with?
I guess I have
go ahead.
Just with that, you brought up if you have the terrace level apartments on side Charlie, and then you have like a terrace level laundry room or storage, are you gonna on the radio decipher between the two and say we're gonna label floors terrace 1, 2 on side Charlie, I have apartments, and then on side Alpha, I have a terrace level laundry room or whatever it be?
To me, when I hear terrace level, it means that there's only access from one side. If it's side Charlie, you have that slider on the back. So if I hear terrace level apartment, I in my mind, I automatically assume that there's apartments on that floor, and there may be something on the other side or may not be. I think where you can make that distinction is if it's a laundry room fire and it's on that terrace level, then I would say, hey, we have a laundry room on the terrace level. I won't relabel it basement because we still have to worry about that exposure of those terrace level apartments. So yeah. I would say we have a laundry room in the terrace level. We have a fire in the dryer on the terrace level, but I wouldn't make that distinction between the basement and terrace just because of those apartments and that potential risk.
Okay.
So I think I figured out how to share my screen. Could we play that video you sent me?
Which video is that?
The one that 5 had, the garden apartment. It was a video from the chief's dash cam.
Oh yeah, that was a Middle Road townhouse.
Yep.
Do
you mind if we talk about that?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Just one quick thing before we switch to that for the garden apartment really quick. Just remember, especially as truck guys, the difference between rescue and removal.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a difference between a rescue for people who are actively in danger versus removing people who are scared, right? Prioritize people who need rescue, and then the people who need removal is still take their needs into account, but again, triaging to make sure that the most in danger, the most susceptible people get attention first, and then the people who are just scared, we focus on that later. So rescue versus removal, and then scared versus endanger. Same. Everybody's, if you're in the fire building, you're going to be scared, but just keep that in mind as you're making your situation report. All right, girls, you got it queued up?
Yep. Mind if I take a leak quick?
Yeah. How about it?
Real fast. I'm really hydrated.
Uh-huh.
I'm back. Woo!
That was a quick one.
Thank you. I tried. See if this works. Can you see that?
Yep.
Oh, it's working. I'll just go to the spot where he pulls on scene. Where's it? I guess right here. Doing it.
So a little backstory here, right? So Andy Mullinax is on the lieutenant's list. He's like number 17 right now. And they were giving him an intern starting like 2 weeks after the list came out, maybe a month after the list came out. So because we were hearing conflicting reports that the list was going to move super quick, and they were talking potential of 15 or 20 right off the bat as soon as like January 1 hit, I decided to let him ride up before his intern got there so we could at least get a couple of days of reps before he got an intern and the potential for him to get promoted right away or within the first couple months. So he was riding up on this day, and he did an excellent job. We had a rookie, Camilla Lowry, this is her first fire. She had been out of recruit school for about a month when this fire came out. And we also had our other rookie who's got 6 more months than her. He was driving the medic unit at that point. And then we had Brian Mims was driving the engine this day, and this was his first working fire as a backup engine driver. So every single person who was on the engine with us that day was riding out of position, or this is their first time at a fire, right? So when we arrived on scene, Andy was giving directions going down the road, and I'm looking up, and again, your head's spinning, your pulse is 220 as you're going down the road, your first fire as an officer. And he's talking, he's like giving directions to Mims, and he's like talking about the water supply. And then he's reading the CAD notes, and then I get on the headset, and I try not to do this, but I knew it was a working fire, but I got on the headset and I said, "Hey, Andy, look over to your left. We have a big column of black smoke. Call for the RIT," right? As I said that to him, Chief Flint, who this is the video from, Chief Flint got on the radio and then called for a RIT task force because he saw that same black column that I saw. So just beyond the tower ladder that's going up right here. Gross, can you pause that for a second?
Yep. Oh, there you go. There's Wolfen.
So just beyond the tower ladder that's going up right now, I believe that was tower 22. is where we position. So we positioned on the Alpha Bravo corner of the row of townhouses, and when we got off the rig, I could see smoke coming off of the Charlie side. So as the hose team, the offensive line that I was talking about earlier, I looked over at Camilla and I said, hey, shoulder that line until we figure out if it's a Charlie side fire or an Alpha side fire because of the amount of smoke that was in the air, right? And as soon as we got off the rig, we could see fire started licking up from side Charlie. And I just told her, go ahead and make the deployment out. And I went with Andy to do his assessment. So as we made our way to the Charlie side, he gave a pretty decent situation report. We had deployed our hand line to side Charlie, and this was a outside in fire. Fire started from the exterior with an improperly discarded cigarette, right? And the fire worked its way up the siding all the way through. And this is when he got on scene. We had been on scene for maybe 90 seconds, right? So we deployed our hand line to side Charlie. It was 1 3/4 inches. We were flowing. We knocked the seat of the fire down, but the fire had extended all the way up. And we talked about those exposure risks. And are you leaving, honey? See you later, love you.
Bye.
So
Love you.
So the fire started on the ground level. He was sitting out back smoking a cigarette. His office is in the basement, and he stepped out for a smoke and then went back in the house. And he actually stopped working, and he was on side Alpha pressure washing his house when the fire started coming up the backside. Right. So he ran in the house and grabbed his wife out, and he's like, what the hell just happened? He said this fire came out, I want to say it was 2 o'clock, maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock. And he said he had his last cigarette at 10 a.m. And so that fire had been smoldering back there for about 2.5, 3 hours. And then it finally took off. It ran all the way up the side Charlie. And we got to the back and we were flowing and we put that initial fire out. But there was a staircase on the deck leading from the ground floor up to the main deck area. That the top 3 stairs on there had already burned through. So I told Camilla to take the fog nozzle off the tip and to start flowing the full 185 gallons per minute out of that 15-16 slug and try to get as much penetration up there because we couldn't get up to that level to put that fire out because the stairs had burned through. While I did that, while she was doing that, I told Andy, hey, I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab a mercury monitor for penetration and for gallonage, and we're going to flow the mercury monitor from side Charlie and put the rest of his fire out, right? So I go back to the rig and I grab it, and Mims is I tell him what my plan is. He starts pulling the 3-inch. He said, hey, I'll meet you around back with the 3-inch. You go back and help out Andy and Camilla because neither one of them, this is their first time doing this, right? First time in their roles. So Mims was stretching the 3-inch, and as I came back with the mercury monitor, I started to get it set up. 26 arrived on scene, and they had pulled a 2.5 and started flowing water with the 2.5. So I just left the 1 3/4 or left the mercury monitor staged in case we needed it. And Mims met me like halfway with the 3-inch. And since they already had a knock on the fire with the 2.5, then we didn't even deploy the mercury monitor. But just my own personal opinion, I prefer the mercury monitor to a 2.5. Every reason that we would pull a 2.5, the mercury monitor is better at. It has more gallonage, it has more reach, it has and it has the ability to be operated safely with one person versus the 2.5. If you start sweeping too much, you're going to need that backup firefighter. And typically when we do those attacks, you're going to need a second line because it's a transition from an exterior defensive thing to a interior attack. So you're going to need that second person to be getting ready to deploy that second line. So I just prefer a mercury monitor. But I am in the vocal minority because I was just told that the mercury monitors that are in service right now, we do not have a plan to replace them. And as their service life expires, they're not going to purchase any new ones. So 2.5s is the way to go, apparently. So fuck what I have to say, right? So when we arrived on scene, the fire that had gone from the inside or from outside in worked its way across the floor number 1, right? Or floor 2, however you decide to label it, but through the main man door to get in and out because the garage is on that first floor. So through the man door, it had pushed its way out. Excuse me. So you can go ahead and roll it. So we had the bulk of the fire on the exterior or so on the basement level and floor 1 knocked down on side Charlie. And you can see we started to actually push the fire out through the front door, right? So when if you see the hand line that's going in service right now, you guys see that?
Yep.
That is our secondary rookie, our senior rookie. His name is Donald Montgomery. He saw that the fire was getting pushed out. He ran back to the engine, deployed a cross sight to the front to side alpha, and started putting a pretty decent knock on the fire using that inch 3/4. Doing a good job sweeping. He's darkening it down pretty well. It is a little more fire than an inch 3/4 can handle. So Chief Flint called for Mims to deploy our deck gun. And you can see once he deploys that deck gun, the fire goes out like right fucking now, right? But Donald had the foresight. He's like, hey, I see that they're putting a lot of water on the fire on side Charlie. There's still a cross lane here. I'm driving the medic, but who cares? And he went back and grabbed that line and started getting a pretty decent knock. And you can he's still flowing, even though they have that deck gun in there. Mims was on top of the rig operating the deck gun. And he said once the fire started to darken down, he couldn't see anything at all because of smoke migration. And you can see how much smoke changed from that thick black smoke that was high velocity and pushing. Once you start to rapidly cool that space, those gases shrink, and then the smoke gets heavy and it's less velocity and it just lays, right? So he couldn't see where he was flowing water anymore because of where he was, and Donald is still up there beating back the dragon with his inch 3/4 on side alpha. So kudos to Donald for having the foresight to say, hey, I'm still a firefighter, even though I'm driving the medic unit. Let me work this out. The other person who was on the medic with him that day was Sean Sack. And Sean Sack was helping Mims out. They did a really good job with the heavy hookup. And while Mims was up there operating the deck gun, Sean Sack stepped in and was operating the pump panel for Mims while he was up there putting the fire out. So what's that?
Old Saccarino.
Yep, old Bigfoot Sack. It was like I said, everybody was riding out of position. Mims's first fire as an engine driver, Camilla's first fire ever, Andy Monax's first fire as riding up on the seat, and my first fire in 8 years as a bucket person. Like it was just like the perfect confluence, and I feel like and I'm say this as humbly as possible. I feel like there would have been a million other, or the other 37 first dues in Fairfax County. There was a good chance of us burning down at least 2 of these townhouses, and we had that fire totally contained to that middle unit. Minor smoke damage in the Alpha or on the Bravo and Delta exposure, minor smoke or water damage, and the majority of the damage that came from them was just the water that came down from the attic space into the structure that caused water damage in the Bravo and Delta exposure. 15 years ago in my career, we'd have burned this whole fucking road down, right? But everybody that was there was on their game. Even though it was their first time, they kept their cool. They were able to deploy the hand lines and put water exactly where it needed to go, when it needed to be there. And we were able to keep this thing in check. Following that RECIO model, we can find it. Before we started to extinguish it, we were worried about it exposing over to the Bravo and Delta, and we kept it within that initial firebox, and we were able to extinguish it relatively quickly here, considering the fact that his video started 10 minutes ago, and the fire's out. And when we got there, it was pretty impressive, and there was a lot of fire to be had. One of the other things that and the fire that we ran our last day is a prime example of it. When we arrived on scene of the fire that we had 2 days ago, on my on-scene report, I said fire on the Alpha side. We pulled past the structure, pulled past the house, and in front of the house was a pretty large bush, and all the siding on the front was on fire when we got there. All of it. So when we walked up, it looked very impressive. It's like, okay, here we go. By the time I finished my lap, the fire was completely out. This vinyl siding, it looks really impressive. It burns really hot, but it burns really fast, because there's not much to it. It's very thin material. So it looks, when you first see it, it burns really hot and then it melts away and then it drops and then the fire's out, right? So by the time I finished my lap the other day, the fire was completely out, and I was getting ready to do my situation report, and I looked around, I was like, where'd the fire go? So again, Camilla, her heady nozzle play, she was able to get all the exterior fire out. There was no extension into the building. So when we pulled up on scene, I thought we had like a working job. And by the time I finished my lap, the fire was out and we were wrapping things up. So just keep that in mind as you're doing your own scene reports and your situation reports. That vinyl siding can make things look a lot more impressive than what it actually is, because once it burns off, it'll fall to the floor, fall to the ground, and then you're stuck looking at the Tyvek paper and everything is still intact, right? The insulation hasn't even been burned through because it burns so hot so quickly that it just falls off, because they're held together by those little plastic clips, and those plastic clips burn away and it just falls right off the house. So, but yeah, these guys did a really good job on this fire. Couldn't have been happier with the way they operated. And shout out to Chief Flint and Mims for him making the call to do the deck gun, and then Mims deploying the deck gun properly. And side note, earlier this day, we went out because we had a brand new engine 5 had just got put in service less than 2 weeks before that. And we went out to one of our parking lots and we practiced a deck gun operation literally 3 hours before we did this, right?
There you go.
So it was very fresh on his mind. Operation went completely smooth. He knew exactly how the operation worked, and he knew exactly how to deploy it and how to aim it. So everything went exactly according to plan. And Engine 5 is one of the newer engines where you can charge your deck gun from the deck gun. So there, you don't have to call for water from the pump panel. There's just a lever you pull there, and it charges right there from the roof of the engine.
What? Can you say that again?
Engine 5 has the ability to charge your deck gun from the top of the engine. You don't have to have somebody at the pump panel to charge the deck gun. So if you're the driver out there and you're asked to deploy the deck gun, you can charge it yourself from the top of the rig. And if you look, fire's completely out at this point, right? Just checking for hotspots, and we're less than 10 minutes from the time he got on scene, which is, again, pretty cool. Awesome. Any questions?
Brian? Can't think of anything. What did the truck crew do?
So the truck 22 was the first truck there, and I would be lying to you if I told you I knew exactly what happened with them, because we were on side Charlie the whole time, and they initially went through the Alpha side. It was Grant Higginbotham was the officer, and Brian Ashley was driving. Grant said that he made the first floor, excuse me. And when he made the first floor, he had very heavy fire conditions in there. He went back and he got a hand line, and he was able to fight some fire before he got pushed out, and then he came back out the side off of there. Actually, I don't even think he had a hand line. I think he had a water can. I don't think he had a water can. He didn't have a hand line with him.
That might be a good structure to talk about what you're going to say for your on-scene report.
For a townhouse?
Yeah.
So I think it's different schools of thought. I was always taught that the first floor has the kitchen, right? So whether we're talking a split foyer house or we're talking a townhouse, the first floor is where the kitchen is. So I would have called that either garage 1-2 or basement 1-2, however you want to describe it. But there is some chief officers who prefer it to be 1-2-3. And they would just say, we'll label it 1-2-3, and I will the main entrance is on floor 2. But
Okay.
you have to make that distinction because I feel like everybody has seen townhouses that have a garage on the first floor and then stairs that go up to the second floor. which is the main man entrance. So if you say that, everybody knows what you're talking about. There shouldn't be any confusion. But we do also have townhouses in our county where it's 1, 2, 3, and you walk in, there's no garage or anything. It's just the first floor, and then it's just three stories up. So I think that distinction of where the front door is important, but the labeling of it is dependent on what your chief wants. Me and Tamalo were trained by the same people. Tamalo is my chief. Me and him worked together for a long time, and he has the same mindset as me. We were both trained by the same captain, and we call that garage or basement 1, 2, and then Chief Betts, he prefers it 1, 2, 3. So just depends on who you're talking to and who you're working with. And one of the other things as a company officer that is dependent on who your chief is Tamalo is very adamant that if he arrives on scene and he establishes command, if you arrive on scene anytime after him, you go to him and you get your assignment, right? So the operating manuals clearly lay out what first, second, third, and fourth due engines are doing and the special services are supposed to be doing. So he is of the mentality of, hey, I don't want anybody freelancing.
Yeah.
So he said he'll say, hey, he'll walk up to, or this is how we work. I'll walk up to him if I'm second or third due engine, and he'll look at me, or I'll look at him and I'll say, hey, chief, it looks like we need a line on the number 2 floor. You want me to take a line up there? He'll say, yep. And then he will get on the radio and he'll say, engine 5, take a line to the second floor. And then I'll get on the radio and I'll say, copy. That way everybody knows what the plan is, but we already discussed what I think the best operation is versus what he thinks the best operation is, and then we'll collaborate to come up with the best thing. But what he doesn't want to have happen is for me just to show up and then take a line to the number 2 floor and then him not know where we are, what we're doing, right? The chief that we had before, Tamalo got there was Dave Hall. Dave Hall was of the mentality of, hey, look, as long as you tell me what you're doing, I'm okay with it. And if I need you to do something else, I'll tell you to do something else. And Tamalo likes to keep everything within his purview. So he's like, if I would rather you come to me and tell me, or you come to me and then we talk about what needs to get done and then you go do it versus you just going to do it and then me not knowing. That way there's no duplication of effort, right? So if you tell me to go take a hand line to the number 2 floor, and then the third engine gets there and they deploy a hand line to the third floor, then there's no communication there. Nobody knows what's going on, and we're duplicating efforts. So the biggest thing is to kind of have those conversations with your chiefs and make sure that you're operating within what they think is necessary. Is Grove still on? Okay. So yeah, so with Tamalo, if you were to label that garage 1, 2, he's totally fine with it. But Chief Betts, which is his boss, prefers 1, 2, 3. But he understands that, our mentality on it. So
yeah, it makes more sense. Like you said, the kitchen is on floor 1.
Yeah. And then the same thing with split foyer houses. Like I always call split foyers. I'll make sure I'll say split foyer and I'll go basement 1. Some people go 1, 2, but again, the kitchen is always on that top floor, and I just that's where the main living area is. It's where the bedrooms are. Like that's floor 1 to me. What we watching?
36's area, they have over-unders. I don't have much experience with those. But like you go in, there's 2 doors right next to each other. So you go in and you have 2 floors. And then you go to the one next to you, go up the stairs, and then you have 2 floors.
2 floors, yeah.
So you gotta differentiate, you gotta differentiate, what your floors are.
Groves, can you stop sharing your screen? I'm going to share mine real quick, and I have a picture of a guard department that's very similar. That's in 5s too.
All right.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right, let's do this. So this is Ellingham Circle in Five Short Stew. And if you look at it here, we have a 1, 2, 3-story garden apartment, open stairwell, right?
Yep.
And up here, I believe it's a loft, or it could just be decoration, right? But that's a 3-story open stairwell garden apartment. I will label that 3-story because this isn't a full story up here, right? So I'm calling that 3-story open stairwell garden apartment. There are 4 apartments per floor. There's a front side apartment and a rear side apartment on both sides, right? The thing that makes this building interesting is this. If you zoom out, this is what you see, right? So you have your 3-story garden apartment here in the middle. Right here, we have a 3-story townhouse that's attached to it. And if you look over here, there's a secondary address right here. On the Bravo side and the Delta side over here is another door that has a 3-story townhouse attached. It's back-to-back townhouses. So these buildings here, if you're given an on-scene report here and you have smoke or fire within the garden apartment section, you have to make sure that you say, hey, we have a multi-story mixed occupancy multifamily dwelling, right? Because the fire could be in one of these townhouses here, or it could be in the garden apartment here. And when you see stuff like this, these mixed occupancies, and I know that outside the Beltway, there's a lot more of these than there are inside the Beltway, but this can be super confusing. And because if you see fire blowing out of one of these windows, these particular ones are back-to-backs, but there could be what Groves was talking about here, where the first 2 floors is one separate occupancy, and then the top 2 floors is a separate occupancy. Then one of the things that you have to be comfortable with in those scenarios is, let's see, am I still sharing my screen?
I went away now.
So one of the things that you have to consider is line over ladder, right? Darken down the fire and then deploy a line over ladder so that you make sure you're going into the right occupancy. Those large multifamily dwellings can get super confusing, and there's a lot of obviously a lot more exposure risk when we're talking about townhouses that are attached to garden apartments. We have the potential for 4, 12, 16 separate occupancies within one building on that last house.
So Terrapin is another good example in Five's area.
Yep. It's a disaster on Terrapin, absolute disaster. And Terrapin is where I decided that we were going to do line over ladder. I was like, because I don't know what the hell I'm looking at, and if it's 6 p.m. right now and it's pitch black outside, and you don't know exactly what you're looking at, you could very well have the best intentions and say, hey, we're going to deploy our line to the number 2 floor and put the fire out in this townhouse section. And then you walk into a door and you're not even nowhere near where the fire is. So big fan of darkening down, throwing a ladder, darkening down from the street, and then deploying that ladder and then taking your line over ladder to make sure that we get water on the seat of the fire. Hey. Okay. I think I woke up my kids. Cool. You got anything else, Groves?
I can't think of anything. Nope.
Awesome.
And
That was good.
Yep. Yeah, I'm recording this. I don't know if you care if I share it.
No, just I think I've swore 2 or 3 times. Just whoever you forward it to, make sure you let them know that I apologize in advance for all my foul language.
It's English, not French. I just got to figure out how to send it. I don't know where it saves it after I record it.
It'll be on your on the Teams in the Teams app, I believe. If you open it up in the app, you should be able to access it from there.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time. And if
Thank
you guys
you.
have any questions or if you want to do this again, please let me know. Like I said, I'm not an expert, and check with your chain of command. Just don't want you guys to make the same mistakes I've made past several years. So,
I appreciate it.
feel free to reach out if you guys need anything, and stay dangerous.
Yes, sir.
Hey, sexy. Bye.
See y'all later. Bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.